Hello, this video is for IXL activity 8.M.10, at least that's what it was at the time of this recording. It's titled Simple Interest. The 3-character code for this activity is Yankee Alpha Tango. So we're going to learn about simple interest. Now that's different than compound interest. So simple interest, and they're going to give us a formula for it, so that's helpful as well. So let's go ahead and read through the first problem and we'll kind of work from there. Heather has $100 in a savings account. The interest rate is 5% per year and is not compound. How much interest will she earn in 2 years? They tell us here to use the formula of I equals PRT, that's P times R times T, where I is the interest earned, so here's our interest there, such as 5%. P is the principal, and principal is a fancy word for the starting amount. And R, it represents the interest rate. Notice R for rate, so interest rate is going to be represented with the letter R, and expressed as a decimal. So we want to express the interest rate as a decimal. We've been doing that in other activities, turning percents to decimals. And T is the time, and that time is always measured in years. So let's go ahead and start off with the first problem here and see what we got. So we're going to use this formula of I equals P times R times T. Now we're just going to substitute each of the values that we get from the word problem here and for each of these variables. These are variables, symbols that represent a value that can change, and they will change as we go from problem to problem. So they want to know how much interest. Notice they're asking us what is the interest, and we're going to represent that in dollars right here in our box. So interest is what we don't know. But what is the principal? The principal is the starting amount, so we know that our principal is $100. They start with 100. And I'm going to use parentheses to show separation between the number values and the multiplication. Remember, something's in parentheses, and there's no operation symbol there. We know to multiply. The rate is 5%. We see that right here. So let's write that rate off to the side. We have 5%. And we want that as a decimal, so we're going to move our decimal over 2 places to the left, make that 0.05, and we'll drop the percent sign. So we see that that value of the interest is going to be 0.05. And then finally, we want time. And time in this case is always measured in years for us. And we see that it's 2 years, so we'll go ahead and substitute years in there. So if I want to find out what the interest is equal to, and I'm going to go ahead and multiply 100 times the 0.5. So if I did that, that would just move the decimal over 2 more places. So I would get, well, let's just do this part first. Let's just do the 100 times the 0.5. Now you can use a calculator to check my work if you'd like, but 100 times 0.5 is going to be 5. And I still have the value of 2 that I want to bring down. So I'm going to get 5 times 2. In that case, that's 10. So the answer to our first question is $10. And you can put the decimal and the 2 zeros there if you'd like, or actually IXL will accept the answer just as 10. Let's go ahead and look at our next question. Check that one out. Carson has $70 in a savings account, so 70 is going to be our starting amount. That is our principal. The interest rate is 10%. We're going to write that as a decimal, move that decimal over 2 places, so it's 0.1. And that is per year. It's not compound. How much interest will he earn in 5 years? So there's our time, right? Time's measured in years. We have 5 years. So let's go ahead, start writing out our interest equals principal times the rate times time. And we want to know what is interest. That's what they're asking us for. Our principal is $70. And our rate is, put this over to the side, 10%. Move that decimal over 2 places, and we're going to end up with 0.1 for the decimal. So 0.1. And the number of years is 5, so our time is 5. Let's go ahead and put that there. And now let's go ahead and do 70 times 0.1 times 5. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and type that into a calculator. And the result that I get will be 35. So the interest, $70 put into a savings account that draws a 10% year of interest, not compound, but simple. over 5 years, and in 5 years' time, they're going to have $35. Looking at the next question, let's go ahead and check this one out. It says that Mark has $64,495 in a savings account. That's the principal. It earns 13% interest annually. The interest is not compound. How much will he have in 5 years? So our numbers are a little bit bigger here, but we're still going to use that same concept. We know that interest is equal to principal times the rate times time. So let's go ahead and find each of our values here. Just more numbers to write down, right? 64,495. We're going to multiply that times the interest rate, which is 13%. We'll put 13% over to the side. Move that decimal over 2 places to get 0.13 as a decimal. So put that in, 0.13. And the time we have here is 5 years. So again, I'll go ahead and use a calculator. So I'll multiply the 64,495 times 0.13 times 5. And the product of all those factors turns out to be $41,921. Actually, it's money, right? And 75 cents. Now that's the interest. But notice, be careful, how much will he have total in 5 years? So $41,921.75 is just the interest. He still has the principal here. That's still Mark's money. So how much does he have in all? Well, we should realize that he has his principal already there, plus he has his interest, and that would equal his, and I better write total, I guess, since we're using T for time. So principal plus the interest would be the total. So let's add those together, 64,495, and it is money. He earned $41,921.75. So since I have cents there, I better put something up here. Put our line across here, and we'll add those up. Line up our decimal marks. And whenever we add these together, well, I could use a calculator. What the heck? I'll go ahead and do this. 5, 7, that's 6, 9, 11, carry the 1. That's 14. We're going to carry the 1 again. That's going to be, what, 6 there, I believe. And then 10. So we're looking at, in this case, how much will Mark have in the bank altogether is going to be $106,416.75. Mark's got a lot of money. Looking at our next question, Millick has $32,248 in a savings account. It earns 10% interest every year, each year, or per year. The interest is not compound. To the nearest dollar, how much will he have total in 2 years? Now, I put this question in because whenever I did this activity, I got caught up in putting dollars and cents and totally missed the phrase to the nearest dollar. So we'll use this example, but I want to be clear that we're rounding to the nearest dollar whenever we get to our final answer. And also, this is another one of those, how much will he have total in 2 years? Well, total is going to be his interest plus his initial principal, or his investment, his starting amount. So we'll go ahead and we'll figure that out. Remember that interest is equal to principal times the rate times time. So let's find out first what his interest is. His principal is $32,248. Let's multiply that times the rate. We'll put some parentheses there for our multiplication. His rate is 10%, so we're going to move that decimal over 2 places. So we get 0.1, so put 0.1 in there. And this is over 2 years. So let's go ahead and multiply all these factors, the principal times the rate times the time. And when we do so, we discover that Malik has $6,449.60. It is money, so let's put a label on it. Now, remember, we need to take his principal and add it to the interest to get the total, because that is what they're asking us, reminding you that how much will he have total. So let's go ahead and take that principal of $32,000 $248.00. And we're going to add to that $6,449.60. We'll go ahead and do this one by hand. Line up our decimal. We have 0, 6, what is that, 17. Carry the 1, 8, 9, nothing to carry, 6, and we got 8 here, and bring the 3 down. So we end up with $38,697.60. But be very careful. It says to the nearest dollar. So we need to round to the ones place here, just to the left of the decimal. That's the nearest dollar. So let's look to the right of the 7. You see this is a 6, so that will increase the 7 to a value of 8. Let's bring down all of our other numbers. 38 there. And we see that whenever we get done rounding the answer, we're going to have $38,698. So Malik, his total is $38,698. Looking at the next slide, Mark has $95,224 in a savings account. The interest rate is 3% per year and is not compound. How much will he have total in 3 months? Well, wait a second. I thought we were measuring in years, and we are measuring in years. So 3 months, we're going to have to figure out how much of a year that is. So first, let's go ahead and start off with our equation. Remember, it is our formula, actually. Interest equals principal times the rate times time. So our interest, do we know what the interest is? No, that's what we're trying to solve, isn't it? Silly me. So let's go ahead and bring the interest here. There's some other problems in the future that we're going to know what the interest is. We'll have to plug that in. Our principal is $95,224. We're going to multiply that times the interest rate, which is 3%. So let's move that decimal over 1, 2 places. We're going to put a placeholding 0 in there. So we're going to have 0.03 for 3%. And now we have 3 months. So, 3 months. Let's see. Well, fraction, parts and wholes, right? In the whole year, there are 12 months, but we're just talking about 3 of them. We could simplify this fraction. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. And if you're good with converting fractions to decimals, then you realize, oh, wait a second, that's like 0.25, right? If you didn't know that, you could remember every fraction is a division problem. 1 divided by 4 would equal 0.25. So to represent 3 months in terms of years, we're going to use 0.25. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply all of these factors together, the principal times the rate times the time. And the product of all those factors will be 714.18. So this is the interest. And again, they're saying how much will you have total? So again, we're going to have to take the interest plus the principal in order to get the total. So anything about rounding? Nope, we should be looking to get to an exact dollar figure to include dollars and cents. So let's look at the interest. Interest is $714.18. And to be accurate, let's throw our dollar sign on there. We need to add that to, well, I suppose, actually, let's go ahead and move this a little bit. We'll group that so that we can move it and make some room for the $95,224. So let's do this. So we can get the decimals lined up real good. Let's do the 224, throw our comma in there, and then put our 95 in. That would work. Should have wrote the big number first. It works out better that way. Remember, we're adding. We'll keep our decimals lined up. This is going to be 8. That's going to be 1. We got an 8 there, a 3 there, a 9 there. Bring down the 5, bring down the 9. And in the end, we have a total of $95,000, $95,938.18. They never told us to round the nearest dollar, so we'll keep it at dollars and cents. On the next question, Janet has $38,759 in a savings account. The interest rate is 12% per year and is not compound. To the nearest dollar, how much interest will she earn in 8 months? So let's go ahead and plug in our formula there, that interest is equal to principal times rate times time. We want to know what is the interest, how much interest will she earn. So this time we don't have to find the total, we just need to find the interest. So let's go with the principal. The principal is $38,759. We need to multiply that times the rate, which is 12%. So let's move that decimal over 2 places. We'll get 0.12. So put that in there, 0.12. And then 8 months. Like, well, wait a second. It's supposed to be in years. So let's try that. 8 months. 8 out of 12 months. And we could simplify this too. Well, let's see. They're both divisible by 4, right? 8 divided by 4 is 2. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. Here's a tricky thing. If I do 2 divided by 3 on my calculator, I'm going to get this long repeating decimal, 0.6666, and so forth. It says repeating 6, right? Well, I need to be exact because over time, all those repeating 6s would add up to money. I can't just round it to like 0.67. That's not going to work. So let's leave this as 2/3. We're going to leave that as a fraction, as 2/3. Now, in doing so, let's first go ahead and multiply just the first 2 factors of 38,579 times 0.12, because that would give us a product of $4,651.08. Oh, let me back up a little bit, and 8 cents. And I still have to multiply it times 2/3. So I'm going to multiply it times 2/3. Now, if I think of this first factor as a fraction, I could put it over 1. Then I could go ahead, and for interest, I could just multiply straight across, right? I could go ahead and multiply numerators times numerators, going straight across, and denominators times denominators, and go straight across. Whenever I do, I would get whatever the product of this is, and that's 2. Well, it's in my calculator right here already, so I'll put times 2. And whenever I go straight across, I'm going to end up with, let me undo that, starting to get behind here, trying to be tricky. And whenever I do that, I'm going to end up with $9,302.16. And now 1 times 3 is 3. In order to simplify this, right, every fraction is a division problem. So I can divide the numerator by the denominator to get the quotient of the 2. Yeah, that'd be quotient between of the 2. So I've already got 9302.16 in my calculator, so I'm going to hit divided by 3, and that's going to give me $3,100.72. And indeed, that is what they're asking for. It's asking us for the interest, so that's what we would put in the answer, $3,100.72. And again, to review what we did, we needed to multiply by a fraction. We didn't want to turn the fraction into a decimal because it was a repeating decimal. So I just went ahead and multiplied my 2 values here that are not fractions, multiplied those together to get the product of those. Then I can remember, okay, I can write this over 1 and not change the value, multiply it times 2/3, and get the product of those as a fraction. Then I could simplify that fraction to just a number there by dividing the numerator by the denominator. Now, on a calculator, whenever I did this, if I were working this out, I had this written down, I would just go ahead and multiply the principal times the interest rate, multiply it times 2, and then with all that in my calculator, I'd hit divided by 3. But I wanted to take the opportunity to go ahead and write it all out so that you understood what was going on there. Looking at the next question, it says Josiah made $1.60 in interest. Now this is where they're going to tell us the interest. Notice that they're telling us what the interest is. He made $1.60 in interest by placing $40, his starting amount, that's the principal, in a savings account with a simple interest for 2 years. What was the interest rate? So we're actually solving for the r that's in the PRT portion of the formula. So let's go ahead and remember that we have interest equals principal times rate times time. This time, we're going to plug in the interest because they tell us what it is. And I'm going to go ahead and just make this 1.6. I'm going to get rid of the dollar sign, drop the 0, and just call this 1.6. The principal is 40. The rate we don't know. R is what we need to solve for. And let's, just to keep things cleaned up a little bit, we don't get too crazy there, let's go ahead and keep the R inside of parentheses, even though we know that would be multiplication without it. And we need to multiply that times 2. So let's bring it down our 1.6, nothing to do on the left right now. Let's do the 40 times 2 is 80. We still have the variable r. Now we can remove the parentheses and we realize we have 80r. Now we have an equation here. It's basically a one-step equation. We're going to divide both sides by 80 in order to isolate that variable r because r represents our interest rate. The 80s would cancel each other, leaving us with r. And 1.6, and I'm going to divide that by 80, and that's going to give me 0.02. Now remember, this is supposed to be an interest rate, but it's represented as a decimal right now. So if I have 0.02, and I want to turn a decimal to a percentage, remember, D comes before P to get from decimal to percentage. Alphabetically, we would have to go to the right. So we're going to go ahead and move our decimal to the right 2 places. Our new number is 2. We're going to throw that percent sign on there. That's actually 2 parts of 100. 2 parts of 100, right? And or we could put the 2 in the 100ths place, and we would say that we have 2 100ths. A little bit of review there for other stuff we've been talking about in class, but if you want to use the D to P, move it 2 places concept, that would be all right. And so we have 2% for an answer. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our next slide here on this problem. It says after 2 years, $4,000 deposited in a savings account with simple interest rate had grown to a total of $4,720. What was the interest rate? So we're missing the R, so we're going to know what the interest is. Remember, let's go ahead and put our formula here. Interest equals principal times rate times time. Now, what is the interest? Well, the interest is how much you earn in addition to the money you put in, right? We can find the interest by what you put in and what you have now. So in this case, to find the interest, we're going to have to take what we have total and subtract the $4,000 from it. And I think that's pretty easy math. We can see that that's a difference of $720. So let's put $720. And our principal, our starting amount, well, we know that number. That's $4,000. We'll put that in there. The rate, well, that's what we need to solve for. And the amount of time they tell us is 2 years. So let's go ahead and bring the 720 down. Let's do the 4,000 times the 2 times 2. I think we can handle that one. That's 8,000. Now we're going to have R for rate. Now we basically have a one-step equation. Let's divide both sides by 8,000. 8,000 is the number we want to get rid of to isolate the variable R. What we do to one side, we're going to do to the other. The 8,000s are going to cancel each other, leaving us with R on the right. And 720 divided by 8,000 is 0.09. So this is supposed to be a rate, so let's take that 0.09. Let's move the decimal 2 places to the right because we're going from a decimal to a percent. So we're going to go to the right, 9, put a percent sign on the end there, and we see that we have an interest rate of 9%. On the next slide, Daryl has $56,320 in a savings account with simple interest. He opened the account with $55,000 just 6 months earlier. What was the interest rate? So on this one, let's go ahead and write out our interest equals principal times rate times time. And the interest we need to find by, let me see, he had this much money in the account. He opened the account, so his principal starting off was $55,000. So we need to do $56,320, and we need to subtract from it $55,000 from that. So, well, this is going to be $320 here, and 6 minus 0.5 is 1. So the interest is going to be 1,320. We're going to set that equal to the principal, what he started out with, which is 55,000. And what is the interest rate? Rate is what we're trying to solve for. And it's over 6 months. So 6 out of 12 months. Well, hopefully you realize, oh, that's 1/2, right? And as a decimal, that's 0.5. 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. So we're going to put 0.5 here. So let's go ahead and multiply the 55,000. And we would multiply that times 0.5, which is actually half. So, and I did 5,500, 55, 1, 2, 3 zeros. And we're going to divide that, that's half. So we're going to end up with, on the right, we're going to get 27,500. And we still have, oh, and the R, don't forget R. And then 1320, we'll bring that down on the left. Now let's divide both sides by 27,500. And what we do to one side, we're going to do to the other. 27,500s on the right will cancel each other, leaving us with R, and 1320 divided by, well, I have it as an answer in there, is going to be 0.048. So I have 0.048. Now, to turn this decimal to a percent, I need to move it over 2 places, so I'm going to end up with 4.8. And we're going to see that the interest rate is 4.8%. And that brings us to our final question that we're going to work on here. And you might see that the interest rate's a little tricky. That's why I've chosen this one. The interest rate's a mixed number, 6 3/8. We have a whole number with a fraction, so that is a mixed number. Toby has $60,000 in a savings account. That's our principal starting amount. He earns 6 3/8% interest per year. We'll deal with that in a moment. The interest is not compound. How much interest will he earn in 2 years? So let's go ahead and get our formula here that interest is equal to principal times the rate times time. So they do want to know what is interest, so we are solving for I. The principal, the starting amount, is 60,000. And our rate here, the number that needs to go in right here. Well, let's think for a moment. 6 3/8. Well, 6 is the same as 6 plus 3/8. 6 3/8 is the same as 6 plus 3/8, right? So we know that we can turn a fraction into a decimal number by multiplying the numerator by the denominator. And whenever we do that for 3/8, we get 0.375. Now remember, this is a percent, so we still have this as a percent. We need to convert this over to, because we had 6 3/8%, right? We just changed the 6 3/8 to 0.6375. But remember, this is a percent, so we still need to move that decimal over 2 places, 1, 2, put a decimal in there and a 0 there, and I'm probably going to have to go ahead and move my parenthesis a little bit, because we're going to end up with 0.06375, kind of a long number there, but still we converted the mixed number to a decimal number, 6.375, and then converted the percentage to a decimal number so that we could have it here by moving the decimal 2 places to the left. And now let's do time, 2 years. So let's multiply all of this together. And doing so would result in an amount of 7,650. So in the end, we realized that Toby, in 2 years, on a $60,000 investment in a savings account with 6 3/8% interest per year, would give him a total of $7,650. Now, whenever I did this activity, I completed it in 18 minutes and 26 seconds. If you want to try to beat that, got it to a SMART score of 100. I did miss 3 questions along the way, and those were pretty much because I wasn't paying attention to instructions like rounding to the nearest dollar, all right, or the total. I missed one because I calculated the interest, not realizing that I had to add the interest to the principal to get the total, because that's what the question was asking. And then I think a couple of them I missed simply because they wanted me to round to the dollar, and I put in dollars and cents. So those are all my examples for 8.M.10, simple interest. Good luck with your activity.